Hi everybody, Katie Noland here with Mosaic World Travel. I'm excited to be doing my very first official Facebook Live. I'm hoping the technology won't get away from me and that it'll actually be helpful. Because I was trying to decide between two places to talk about today. For those of you who are a part of my Facebook page, you probably have seen that I ran a little poll to see who wanted me to talk about Mexico, which is where my husband and I just traveled earlier in June. End of May, early June, we went, and who wanted me to talk about my upcoming trip to Myanmar and Cambodia. And it was pretty well split. I kind of cast the deciding vote, and my original vote was for Myanmar and Cambodia, and was planning to talk about that. I think it's going to be a really exciting trip, and I look forward to telling you all about it. But because it is still officially in the planning stages, I still have some bits and pieces to add to it. And because I don't have any visuals for you that are my own from my trip, I thought I should go ahead and talk about Mexico and kind of what we did, where we went, what we saw, what we felt like was amazing, what we felt like maybe we could have skipped, and just kind of give you a little bit of insight if you're headed to that part of the world. We stayed in Cancun. I actually, in my first few months as a travel agent, I was really fortunate to win a stay at Club Med Cancun. Actually, I had my choice of several different Club Med locations, and ended up choosing Cancun because my husband and I are not super big on sitting at the beach and just kind of relaxing. We're much more go, do, see, be active sort of people. And a lot of the locations, for example, the Turks and Caicos location is an amazing beach, world-class beach, can't miss it. And if you're a beach person and you had the choice to make between these or among these several Club Med locations, I would absolutely recommend the Turks and Caicos one. But since we are not beach people, it made sense for us to go somewhere that had some history and some day trips that we could take just kind of to get off of the resort property and see a little bit more of Mexico and have a little bit more of a I won't say it was a super authentic Mexican experience, but something a little more cultural. We of course enjoyed the resort while we were there. It was really beautiful, and free drinks and lots of food, and really I'm not a huge all-inclusive person. This was my first trip to an all-inclusive resort, so it was interesting to see, and I for sure had some negative opinions of all-inclusives, especially of the food, and was pleasantly surprised, to be honest. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the resort itself because your choice of a resort is so specific to what you want and how you like to stay and your budget and everything. So I want to focus mostly on the other activities that we did while we were there. Because those are things that anybody can do. A lot of them are even available as shore excursions from cruise lines. If you stop in Cozumel, you can go see Chichen Itza. You can go see Tulum. So these are widely popular destinations for the most part, and so I just wanted to add my 2 cents as to how we experienced them and what we thought of these different places. So As a travel agent, when I'm planning my own personal trips, I love the companies that I work with for my clients. If I didn't love them and if I didn't feel like they provided an amazing experience, I wouldn't use them for my clients. And so when it came time for me to start looking at some excursions and some day trips for my trip, I knew that I wanted to work with one of the Signature destination specialists in Mexico. And Signature is a consortium that I'm a part of. And so really it's just a big group that includes a variety of different travel agents and a variety of different destination specialists and other suppliers, cruise lines, and various companies that can help you get where you want to go, and they can help you have an amazing time while you're there. And these are all vetted. These are all really reliable companies. So I know that when I'm using a Signature supplier or a Signature destination specialist, that they're going to provide an amazing experience for my clients, or for me in this case. And just to clarify a little bit, a destination specialist, which is what I used, is it's an organization that's in the actual destination. So there are companies that do, everything for everywhere, or maybe they have a really broad reach and just one headquarters location. They may know that destination, but they're not in that destination necessarily. And so I almost always, for the way that my clients travel and the way that I travel, I almost always work specifically with destination specialists. And the thing that I like about destination specialists is that they can really provide unique experiences. They can give up-to-the-minute advice about different tours or destinations or resorts, hotels, various properties, and they can help me to put together an itinerary for you based on your wants and needs. So it kind of works out in that I talk to you as my client and get a feel for, okay, you're really adventurous, or you're more interested in the cultural aspect of the trip that you're taking, or you really want to have elephant encounters, or whatever it might be. And then once I have a feel for that, then I take that to the specialist that I think is going to be able to best meet those needs. And I work with that specialist to build you an itinerary for that particular destination. And a lot of the trips that I've done lately, I work with multiple different destination specialists and kind of cobble together a package that works, because my clients want to go to multiple different destinations. I have a honeymoon couple that I'm working with right now who's amazing. They're planning this amazing trip, which is so fun, including Thailand, the Maldives, and Dubai. And so I have specialists in each place who are going to help get me the best deals, give me the best advice, and build the best itinerary for all three places. So that being said, that is sort of the backstory as to why I decided to go with one of the Signature destination specialists in Mexico, which is called Journey Mexico. And they were amazing, and I knew a lot of what I wanted. I kind of told them I want to see ruins, we want to have sort of the more cultural experience, we want to kind of see the main tourist sites, so that I can personally get a feel for what would be good to recommend to my clients, and then maybe some things that are a little bit off the beaten path, some ecological sort of adventures, some different sort of ruins that maybe not everybody sees and goes to. So that was my plan, or that was what I sort of pitched to Journey Mexico, and they came back to me with some amazing advice and trips, and they helped me kind of put together, because if you're doing it on your own, you don't know, okay, can I get to Chichen Itza and back and then do this other trip before I'm exhausted for the day? And so they kind of were able to handle the scheduling portion of it, which is amazing because that means they know, they've done it. So I'm going to just show you, this is sort of the folder. It's a little bit worn because I took it with us on our trip. This is the folder Journey Mexico gave us once we had finalized our itinerary. And it was full of a paper copy of our itinerary, as well as, welcome. And one of the amazing things about working with a destination specialist or with a travel agent is that you have support. And so, obviously if you were working with me, you could call me, but sometimes if you're in a different time zone or it's the weekend or whatever, I might not be available to answer. Obviously I always do my best, and I have for sure been on hold for hours with airline companies on a Sunday to help my clients get to where they need to be. That's part of the job, but it's also great for me as a travel agent and for you as a traveler to know that when you're traveling with someone like Journey Mexico, you're going to have a customer service team on site in Mexico. So if something happens, or if you have an emergency after hours, you have a toll-free number to call. You have a personal assistant essentially in Mexico, a personal contact there that is going to be available to you. So anyway, that's a little bit about why I choose to work with destination specialists. I even have a destination specialist in Croatia that gives you a cell phone with their emergency numbers programmed in, with like the GPS capabilities, so you don't get lost if you're doing a self-drive in Croatia, which is a really great way to see that country. But you also you don't have to use your minutes if your phone doesn't work in Croatia. You don't have to worry about any of that. They are there to take care of you. So yes, you can sometimes go on to something like Viator, and you can book a one-day tour, but it's so much different when you have a company that's really ushering you through the whole process. They're there if you have questions, if you need something. And in a lot of cases, like our situation with Journey Mexico, we had the same guide and the same driver every day. So we got to know her. She got to know us. She could get a feel for, okay, they're going to like this, they're not going to like this. They probably want to stop at this kind of place to have lunch, like a more local, less touristy place, and was able to make recommendations based on that. So lots of benefits of working with a destination specialist. But I'm going to get to the point now and tell you a little bit about our trip to Mexico. So I'm going to kind of refer back to our itinerary, which was put together by Journey Mexico, our destination specialist. We got into Cancun on the 26th, which was a Saturday, and we had a private driver pick us up at the airport, which was nice. It's just a little added bonus for a flight like Cancun. I live in North Carolina, so it was a 3-hour direct flight. So, you're not necessarily tired and worn out, but in about 3 months when I'm going to Myanmar and I hop off of a plane after 23 hours of traveling, it's going to be really nice to have someone there with my name on a board, waiting to take me to my hotel, and help me with my bags and all of that stuff. So anyway, they picked us up, they took us to the Club Med, and we kind of had the rest of that day to enjoy the resort and just kind of do what we wanted to do for that day. So the next day, and I'm going to switch here, I have a slide set up because I wanted to be able to show you, there we go, some images of our trip, so that you could just see what I'm talking about a little bit. So this first picture is just a picture of the beach area at Club Med. The beach was nice enough. We didn't spend a lot of time at the beach there just because we were going. There were red flags out a lot of the time that we were there, so that was a little bit off-putting. You know, we did go in the water a couple of times, and there were definitely people swimming, but I would say, I mean, we didn't choose the resort for the beach, and there were definitely other beaches that were much calmer than that one. There was a lot of seaweed. There had been some big storms recently, and so you know, it happens, but it was definitely a pretty beach, for sure. So, like I said, we didn't spend a lot of time there. This first picture is of what we did, our very first adventure while we were in the Cancun area. We went to Coba, which is a Mayan archaeological site, and all of these sites are right about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Cancun. So it just kind of, you know, it depends on, you're pretty much going to be, you're going to be in the car a little bit to get out to these sites. But as you can see here, one of the best ways to get around Coba is by bike. They also have bike taxis, I think they call them, where you can, it's a 3-wheel bike with 2 wheels in the back, 1 wheel in the back and 2 wheels in the front, and just a bench. And so that you can sit on that and kind of get biked around. I don't know if you're a fan of my Facebook page, you may realize that I am not I'm not a skilled biker, and so while I tried a few times, including at Coba, it was just too far. There were too many people, although you can't see them in this picture, and I felt like I was sort of a danger to myself and to others. And so we initially rented the bike sort of at the entrance, and then we went a short way to sort of the first site, and there were plenty of the bike taxis waiting there for us. So I was able to hop off of my bike and take a bike taxi, and it really helped. I mean, I'll say this, there's no shame in taking the bike taxi. They're relatively inexpensive. They're there for you. And if you're planning on climbing up the pyramid, you may want to save your energy depending on how athletic you are and how interested you are in biking. But the trails are fairly flat. They're a little bit rocky, but the trail itself I wouldn't say is too bad. It's just a long way, and if you're not used to biking in the heat especially, it's not a lot of fun. So, but my husband did bike, and our guide biked, and I rode along behind in my little chariot. So this is a picture of the main pyramid at Coba, which you can still climb, unlike a lot of the other places in a lot of the other Mayan sites in Mexico. You're not able to climb them. So this one you are able to climb, and it's quite a climb. It doesn't look nearly as high as it is. And then once you're up there, you have a view over the treetops. It's a very impressive site. The steps are very tall, very high, and so you kind of end up in a four-legged sort of crawl up the pyramid, but it's definitely worth it. I would say for me, the more intimidating part was coming down, because you're looking down, and obviously there aren't really any handrails or anything like that, and the stones are not exactly stable, I guess, and they're not exactly they're fairly smoothed over in some places from use. So you do have to be fairly careful when you're climbing down. But it was great to be able to climb up. It was great to be able to see from the top, and there's sort of a view over the treetops. You really are very, very high up, and you do get a pretty amazing view. So after we went to Koba, our next stop was at Akumal, which is a beach town not too far away. And the big attraction at Akumal is snorkeling with the sea turtles. There are sea turtles there that, for whatever reason, are used to having humans around, and they kind of hang out and let you see them and interact with them. And so that was our plan at Akumal, was to do the snorkeling with the sea turtles. We got there, and fortunately we had our guide with us, because while I do speak some Spanish, complicated changes to plans are not my forte, and so I was glad I had someone who fully understood what was happening when we kind of changed our plan. And that was, there were a lot of people in the shallow area with snorkels, just sort of swimming and peeking under the water. I'm not sure if there were turtles there or not, but there was a fairly big crowd, and kind of when we first walked up, I was like, oh, I don't know that I want to, try to elbow people out of the way so I can see some sea turtles, and are the sea turtles really going to approach when there are quite that many people around? And so we were able to, or our guide was able to negotiate for us to take one of the boats, which you can see in the picture here, take one of those boats out farther to where there weren't other people snorkeling, so we had a space all to ourselves, and then we were able to snorkel off of the boat. Snorkeling is amazing. Obviously, there was a lot of coral, there were a lot of fish and other creatures. I have the impairment of wearing glasses, which don't go that well with the goggles, snorkel goggles. So I was a bit disoriented, I would say, as far as being able to see what was going on, but I still had a great time. A lot of things were huge. We saw a huge stingray. There's no way I could have missed it, even without my glasses. We saw a couple of sea turtles, one that swam, I thought was going to swim right into us, so I couldn't miss that. So we were able to see a lot of things, and I think it was a much better experience ultimately than it would have been sort of wading in the shallows and trying to claim a spot to see the sea turtles. So that was, another reason it was great to kind of have that guide to sort of smooth us through that experience. If you're fluent in Spanish, then maybe it's not a huge deal. Maybe you don't necessarily need a guide. She didn't go with us on the boat or anything like that, but it's just nice. I'm on vacation. I don't want to have to stress about, okay, did I understand what they said? Did I not understand? So it's kind of nice sometimes to just even though we're going and doing and not sitting, it's still kind of nice to kind of sit back and let someone else worry about all of the details, which is something that I definitely got used to. I don't really have a lot of pictures of Akumal. This is actually not my photo. This is just sort of a generic stock photo of Akumal, and but that's basically what it looked like when we were there, except a lot more people in the water. And so after that, our guide took us to a little spot for lunch at the beach, you know, on the sand, and we had fish tacos and you know, some tasty food before we headed back to the hotel that night. So that was our very first day, or our first full day in the Cancun area, and so we did Coba and Akumal that day. So the next day, and you may recognize this image, this is Chichen Itza. And I believe it's listed as one of the 7 new wonders of the world, or wonders of the New World, or, you know, they have a ton of different lists. It's absolutely amazing. It's a breathtaking sight. And this is the side, this picture is the side that has not been restored. One of the sides has been fully restored, so you see how it was. I thought it was interesting to kind of see that even though it hasn't been restored, the shape is very obvious. It's held up remarkably well. So Chichen Itza, for sure. I think a lot of people are on the fence between Chichen Itza and Coba. I mean, Tulum, and we'll talk about Tulum in a little bit, but I have to say Chichen Itza is definitely a can't miss site. And even as popular of a tourist attraction as it's becoming, it's a huge site. I never felt crowded. There were other people around, but you could get photos without people in them, obviously. You could navigate. It was nowhere near what I kind of expected, I guess. Our guide was telling us that at the solstice, where the light hits the pyramid in just the right way, they do have quite a celebration there, and there are tens of thousands of people, and it is very crowded and it's very busy. But on sort of your average day, it's not bad. And I have a pretty low tolerance for crowds and tourists being annoying, and we did not have a bad experience at all. Just some other photos from the site at Chichen Itza, a wall with skulls carved into it. Our guide told us there's another site in Mexico, and I can't remember which one it was, but another site where they actually had actual skulls in this layout, making up the wall as sort of a warning or a intimidation tactic. That's me, and there's my husband Josh. That was us at the cenote, the sacred cenote at Chichen Itza. You can't swim in that cenote, but it's beautiful, and it was very meaningful to the Mayan people. And so it's nice to kind of walk over to that spot as well. So that got snuck in there. I'll come back to that one. This is also, this is a different temple at Chichen Itza. I think they call it the Temple of 1,000 Columns or something similar. There aren't 1,000 columns, but there are a lot of columns. They don't know exactly how they were used. There are a lot of different theories, but still, for them to be standing the way that they are still after all these years is a pretty amazing feat of excuse me, architecture. Excuse me. I put this picture in here. I actually was taking a picture of the tree because it was a beautiful tree, and it looks sort of like a mimosa tree, but it's not. I can't remember exactly what type of tree it is, but I wanted to mention that at Chichen Itza there are tons of vendors, and that can be off-putting to some people for sure. If you don't want to buy anything, you can just say no, you can keep walking. They were not at all aggressive or pushy when we were there. But if you are in Mexico and you're going to kind of some of the same sites that we went to, I would say that Chichen Itza is probably one of the best places to get a variety of souvenirs. I don't know a lot about where they're sourced. I don't know a lot about the pricing because we didn't actually buy anything. We unfortunately had left the wallet in the car, so we didn't have money. You can do that too, but we decided to, or we would have. There were several like T-shirts and some really cool Mayan style souvenirs that would have been interesting to bring home. And I would say the variety for sure is the best at Chichen Itza that I saw anywhere. So if you're going and you need to bring back some souvenirs for your friends and family, or for yourself, keep in mind that Chichen Itza has a pretty decent vendor population there, and that may be a good place for you to get those sorts of trinkets. So before I move on, I want to go back to this picture. This is after we finished at Chichen Itza. We kind of drove a little ways, and our guide asked us if we wanted to stop to swim at a cenote. And I think the answer to that is always yes. Mexico is hot and humid, kind of like North Carolina, and the cenote, at least this one, was very cold. Actually, it was chilly water, so it was very refreshing for a midday dip. So if you can kind of, I mean, there are hundreds, thousands maybe of cenotes in that area. There's always one nearby. So if you have a guide, or even if you don't, you can almost always find one. Spend a little bit of money and just take a dip and cool off. Yeah, it makes for a nice little experience, and it's one of those things that you do when you're in Mexico. So we were able to cool off. We had lunch at that cenote as well, and then it was nice to cool off because after lunch it was back to our Mayan archaeological sites. This time was a lesser known site called Ekbalam, and it was one of my favorites, I would have to say. I mean, Chichen Itza is breathtaking. Everybody's heard of Chichen Itza. You want to go to Chichen Itza for sure. But if you're interested in sort of the authenticity, I guess, or the way that these ruins looked before they were really uncovered. Like, if you want to imagine you're an explorer or an adventurer and you happen upon these Mayan ruins, Ekbalam is a really cool place to go. Like I said, it's not super well traveled. You don't see a lot of other tourists there. You almost kind of feel like you have the place to yourself and can explore. It's very much, a lot of it is still consumed by the jungle, and hasn't been and isn't really on the schedule or in the budget to restore. So it has a very, it gives you more of a sense of what had to be done to kind of get these ruins up to the standard of, say, something like Chichen Itza. But it's not just that. That's not the only reason. So this is sort of the jungle and the path that you would go through at Ekbalam. This is the main structure at Ekbalam, and you see the sort of thatched roof areas, and they are they're protecting some amazing, like breathtaking, you can't believe it, carvings and inscriptions and statues and the like. And one of the really cool things about Ekbalam is, whereas the majority of the Mayan pyramids were temples, they had religious significance, but they weren't burial sites. Well, this temple was a burial site, and when the people who lived there, when their leader died and they wanted to sort of give him this amazing amount of respect, they entombed him in this pyramid, and then they blocked it up, they walled it up, they sealed it, they tried to protect it from future people who might try to open the tomb or raid the tomb or what have you. And so a lot of the because it was blocked off for so long, a lot of the carvings, the intricate carvings, are not worn down by the weather in the way that a lot of exposed temple carvings are. And so you can see this is the entrance to the tomb, and just amazing. I mean, it's so different from something like Chichen Itza, or that you would see at a lot of other places. And so it was really pretty breathtaking. You can climb up. So if you see the upper thatched roof on the left hand side there, that's where you'll see this, under that thatched roof. And I mean, there are paintings that are still there from that time frame. Just a really incredible feeling of almost like history being alive. It's more tangible, it's more relatable, I feel like. This is the view from the top, or from where that tomb area is, and you can kind of see it's very much jungly. It's very it's sort of how it was when it was discovered. So before I move on, that's the sort of the end of that day. The next day was actually my husband and I were celebrating our 14th wedding anniversary, and so I had talked to the folks at Destination at Journey Mexico, and I had asked them, what's something really cool that we could do to celebrate, and they suggested spending some time at Hotel Nizuc, which is actually right next door to Club Med Cancun. This amazing property. It has this Zen feeling throughout. This is a picture of just a water feature off of the lobby. Like, right behind me when I was taking this picture was the registration desk. So this is sort of just the view within the lobby. And this is another sort of view of that, and you can kind of cross the water, you can sit and you can see the ocean, and you can kind of listen to the waves. And there's a restaurant over to the right hand side there. It's very beautiful. It's very zen. It just makes you want to just relax immediately. And this was just the main lobby area. This is a shot of the beach at Nizuc, and so you can kind of tell, like, the beach is a lot calmer here. It's less sloped and things like that. So, even though it's right around the corner from Club Med, you just have a very different style of beach. And that's how resorts go. You have different styles of beach at every single one. It's hard to know it all unless you have a travel agent or you have a destination specialist who can help you out. I don't have pictures of our treatments, but what we did was we rented a spa villa for the day, and at the spa they have what they call a hydrotherapy circuit, and so you kind of go from the really cold water to the hot water to the steam room to the sauna and you kind of make your way through all these different temperatures and sensations, and it takes about an hour. They give you some tea, they give you a scalp massage, you kind of do a little bit of everything. And so that was the beginning, and then we were taken to our villa where we had an authentic Mayan cacao treatment where, they scrubbed some cacao scrub on us and then used cacao oil for a massage. And once we were done, they served us lunch. And then we had some free time to enjoy the villa. They gave us a bottle of champagne since it was our anniversary, which was really nice. And we had our own little infinity pool in the villa there, so we were able to swim and relax and sort of have an amazing day of pampering. So if you're headed to Cancun and you want a day of pampering, be sure to head there. You can also obviously stay there. It's a hotel. I didn't see the rooms, but if the spa is any indication, they're amazing and zen and calming and wonderful, and would be a very incredible retreat. So after we had our day at the spa, I wanted to do something that evening that was a little bit fun. And so this is a picture from our evening. We went on what's called the Columbus Dinner Cruise, and you can have surf and turf, so you can have lobster and steak, or you can just have steak or just lobster, or vegetarian, or however you want to do it. But it's a small ship made to kind of look like a sailboat, and they cook the food on board, and you just kind of sit and you drink. There's an open bar, and they have live music, and you just kind of sit and talk. And we met some guys from Cancun there and ended up going out with them afterwards. It was just sort of a chill, fun little, I mean, yes, I would say it is cheesy, it's lovey-dovey, but someone proposed to his girlfriend on the cruise. I think that happens quite a lot. They have sort of a procedure for it. So, it was cute, and it was, the food was decent. I had a great time, just chatting with other people and talking about, where we had been and what we had done, and kind of swapping stories, and, then also getting to practice my Spanish a little bit, with our new friends. So, that was a fun evening. I didn't get a lot of great pictures just because it was mostly, just going around in the lagoon in Cancun, and the sun went down, and that was kind of it. We went back. But it was a nice way to end our anniversary evening. So I would definitely recommend it. So the next day we were back to touring. And we started our day at the Biosphere Reserve at Sian-Can, which is a little ways south from Cancun, but it's this amazing mangrove forest area with clear water. You can see there it was pretty overcast, but you can still kind of see how blue the water was. And so we took a short boat ride through the mangrove forest, and then we were able to get out of the boat, and we put on life vests, and they recommend you do it in a bit of a funny way. They call it the Mayan diaper. So you basically put the life vest on your legs through the arms of the life vest and pull it up. And so then we used it almost like an inner tube. When you go tubing, you just sort of sit back in the tube and float. And that's kind of how it was. We floated through the mangrove forest for a while, and we were the first boat that left. We were the only people around. All you could hear were birds and animals, and there were orchids lining the little stream sort of area there. So it was a beautiful experience. It was a great way to start the morning. It wasn't long, and then we kind of walked back along the boardwalk through this sort of swampy area, and so we were able to see lots of flowers and birds and trees, and it was a really pretty experience. And when we got back to where we had started, there were definitely like 2 boatloads of people getting ready to go. So it was nice to do this solo tour, the private tour, rather than a larger group tour. But I'm sure a larger group tour would have been fun as well. It was just sort of nice to feel like we had the whole place to ourselves. So going back, yeah, that's the water. It was very shallow. A lot of times we were able to stand up, and other times we weren't. But that was one of my favorite things that we did, and I would like to, if we go back, I would definitely like to explore that area a little bit further. So then from there, we got dried off and we went to Tulum. And Tulum is another one of the more popular tourist destinations. And I have to say, it was probably my least favorite place that we went. And I think it's just because there were so many people there. And I don't know if a cruise ship had arrived and they had all just gotten there, but there were people everywhere. It was hot and we were tired. And, there were some interesting, for sure, things about that spot, and it being right on the ocean. That was, interesting. Could have made for some really great pictures, and I did take a few pictures there. You can kind of see, the water. But you can also see, like, the paths were just lined with people. There were people everywhere. It was hard to take a photo that didn't have 10 people in it. There were people lined up to take their picture in front of certain viewpoints. And to me, that sort of, on the one hand, it's like, the tourists are supporting this site, which is great, and they're giving money to restoration of some of these sites. And on the other hand, it makes for kind of a miserable experience as far as I'm concerned, because you can't see what you're there to see. You don't feel, it just feels like a Disney World sort of adventure where, everybody just kind of follows the path and looks, and nobody had guides except for us, really, and so they didn't know what they were looking at, and I can't imagine that you could really get much out of it if you're just maybe reading the signs as you walk past. So Tulum is one of those places that's very, very popular. Obviously, I wouldn't say you shouldn't go there, but I would say if you had to choose between Tulum and Chichen Itza, that I would 110% go to Chichen Itza, even if it's a little bit farther from where you are. So that was Tulum. That was the end of our time with Journey Mexico. They did 3 days for us, and then they kind of let us have some time on our own. And my original intention was that we were going to spend that time enjoying the property and hanging out at the beach and doing all those sorts of things. And we did not do that. We did for 1 day, but I also came across in my research something called Rio Secreto, and it kind of reminded me, several years ago I was in Belize and did the ATM cave. I believe I'm going to butcher it, but it's the Aktun Tunichil Muknal cave, which is why we go with ATM, where it's a wet cave where you go through and you swim part of the way, and you're hiking through the water and climbing over rocks, and there's a lot to see. And I came across Rio Secreto, which is similar in a lot of ways. I would say don't compare the two, because I don't want to talk about the ATM cave because I'm talking about Mexico. But ATM has a lot of artifacts and things which you don't really have at Rio Secreto. Rio Secreto is a bit of a, it's definitely a built-up sort of touristy place, but we had a relatively small group of people that we went with. I think there were maybe 10, 15 people, and we did the longer tour. They have a couple of different tours. One is just through the wet cave, and the other one you get to do a dry cave There's biking, and you get to rappel down into the dry cave, explore the dry cave. They have like a little video, and then you do the wet cave portion. If you're not a biker, if biking is not something that specifically appeals to you, I would say that it's probably worth it just to do the basic trip through the wet cave portion. The wet cave portion was much more interesting, and I wanted to rappel because I'd never done it before, but it was a very short rappel. I don't know that it was worth the extra time. You do also go through, and I'm actually not sure if you do this on both of them or not. They have a like an authentic Mayan hut set up, and they have a Mayan woman who actually lives there, and or several days a week she lives there, and she does a lot of authentic Mayan handicrafts. And she makes tortillas, and she makes some other, she made some dip, I think. I can't remember exactly, but so we were able to taste the homemade, authentic Mayan tortillas and some of the Mayan foods that she had. And so that was, it was an interesting cultural experience for sure. But as far as the rappelling goes, it was a very short rappel. Yeah, it wasn't great to me. The dry cave overall was interesting, but not super special. But the wet cave, as you can see in this picture, is really where it's at. There's some amazing formations. The water is chilly, so they give you wetsuits. This was us before we went down into the caves, and we did have to kind of hike down through the woods there to get to the opening to the cave. There is us in our gorgeous wetsuits and helmets. I will say one of the things that they do, you're not allowed to take your camera or phone or anything that takes pictures into the cave, which on the one hand makes sense. There's a lot of water. You need your hands free. You don't need to be trying to take pictures. And on the other hand, it does lend itself to a bit of a scam. I wouldn't say it's really a scam. I mean, it's a money-making opportunity for them because they do have a professional photographer who follows you around. You stop at certain points, particularly interesting viewpoints, and they take your picture. And so this was one of those viewpoints. And then, of course, end of the story, as you probably guessed, is that you come out and they want to show you all your pictures, and they want you to buy the pictures, and the pictures are just ridiculously priced. I think it was like one picture was $20, and you get the print or whatever. We ended up they had a special. We needed some souvenirs because we had not gotten any at Chichen Itza, and our kids needed some souvenirs, and we needed a few things to take home. So they had a deal where it was like you get all of your pictures on a flash drive. You get some sort of generic stock photo-y pictures that they've taken of the caves and of the area and of the wildlife that you can see there, and all the pictures of yourself. You get like 5 different souvenirs, and it ends up being $150, which, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's an investment, and it's not cheap by any stretch. So please look carefully at this picture and realize that it was paid for. And it needs to be worth it. So this was one of the last things we did when we were in the cave, and it was pretty cool. We all laid on our backs and floated and looked up, and we sort of held hands and in a circle, and then the guide and the photographer turned off their lights, so it was completely dark. And she said that we would do that for 30 seconds or a minute, and it seemed like an hour before she turned on the lights. It's crazy how disorienting it can be when you are in just complete darkness. It's a really cool experience. They do that at a lot of different like cave sort of places, where you're deep enough that you don't have any light coming in, and it's definitely a cool experience. So I would say Rio Secreto for sure was interesting. It can be a little bit of a scam, but you do get lunch included. So they had a decent little buffet lunch with a few different options, and drinks, and obviously the tour, and then you can add on, whatever sorts of photos that you would like to add on. So that really kind of sums up all of the activities that we did in Mexico and the greater Yucatan Peninsula area. There's so many more things to do. We were there for a week. We wanted some time to sort of relax, and obviously we took a day off of our adventuring to do some relaxation at the spa, which was amazing. But as far as sort of summarizing and like the best advice that I have, I would say Rio Secreto was a really cool adventure. I do want to mention, actually, I sort of mentioned it, the biking portion at Rio Secreto is, I'm not a biker. I've mentioned that. I don't bike. I'm not good at it. At all. I tried again, and the roads are bumpy. They're filled with rocks. They're hilly. They're up and down. Like, you get car sick trying to drive a bus through it, and trying to ride a bike. It was very easy to hit a rock and just kind of lose your way and kind of veer off or whatever. The roads were muddy and potholed, and it actually started raining while we were there, so I was wet, and the seat was wet, and the pedals were wet, and the handles were wet, and the road was wet, and I think even in the best of conditions, it's not an easy bike. It's not, flat surface by any stretch. It's not easy. So, if you are not a biker, they do have a van that you can ride into the cave, which ultimately I did, after a bit of a disastrous, adventure on the bike. And so I would say, if you're not a skilled biker, or if you feel uncertain about your biking abilities, just ride in the bus. It's not a fun bike, I wouldn't say. They're older bikes, and it's just not that fun. And it doesn't really take away from the adventure, in my opinion. So there's your summary of our trip to Mexico. I'm just going to reiterate, we did Coba and Akumal the first day, or as our first tour day. We did Chichen Itza and Ekbalam. We did Tulum and Siancán. And we also spent a day at the spa, and we spent several hours at Rio Secreto. So it was a good adventure, and I look forward to kind of summarizing some future adventures. I think probably what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about my plans for Myanmar and Cambodia, and kind of my reasons behind going, and what I hope to see and what I hope to do, and then maybe in the next couple of months. And then after my trip, I will do sort of a wrap-up like this, and hopefully show off some pretty cool photos of what I saw and did. In the meantime, if there are any destinations that you would like for me to profile, I could definitely do Iceland, because my husband and I went there not long ago, or Peru. It's nice to have some photos to share and some firsthand experience to share. But Yeah, and if you're planning a trip, let me know, because I would love to help you plan a trip where everything goes smoothly, where you have a guide where you need a guide, where you have transfers where you need transfers, and where you feel like you can do everything, but you have someone there to take care of you and look out for you so that you experience things as stress-free as possible. And that's what I always try to do. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you for watching. This video will be recorded, or has been recorded, and it'll show up on my Facebook page. So please, if you didn't get a chance to watch, or you didn't get a chance to watch at all, or if you missed something or you want to see it again, because it was just that amazing, let me know, or just look out for it, and it'll be there for you to watch at your leisure. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to talking to you about your travels going forward. Have a good day.